He called her a worthless stray, and he laughed at her worn-out clothes and her silence as if both were personal insults to his existence. The billionaire tycoon looked toward the corner of the VIP section and decided the old woman sitting there must be nothing more than a senile cleaner who didn't belong in his world. And when he glanced at the waitress serving his champagne, he dismissed her just as easily, assuming she was another ignorant American girl whose life would never brush against his in any meaningful way. He was wrong, dead wrong, because when that waitress finally opened her mouth, she did not merely speak his language. She spoke a dialect so rare, so royal, and so dangerous that it froze the entire restaurant mid. And this is the story of how a waitress destroyed an empire with one sentence. The rain in London never truly washed anything clean. It only pressed the grime deeper into the stone. And that was exactly how Sarah felt each time she pushed through the doors of the Gilded Lily, the French fusion restaurant in Kensington where she had spent the last 4 years invisible, her name tag reading Sarah J., just Sarah, nothing more, nothing less. To the customers she was a pair of steady hands delivering Wagyu beef and a ghost refilling water glasses, before anyone noticed their thirst. To her landlord she was 3 days late on rent. But to the woman perched on a folding chair in the back of the kitchen clutching a plastic bag full of knitting yarn, Sarah was everything, and that woman was her mother, Nora. "Sarah, you can't keep bringing her here, Charles," the floor manager hissed. A man so precise he ironed his socks and believed the sun rose and set, according to his approval rating from the Michelin Guide, and Sarah tightened her apron to hide the tremor in her hands as she explained, "The daycare center closed, Charles. The pipes burst. I can't leave her alone in the flat. You know she wanders." But Charles only pinched the bridge of his nose and warned her that if she made a sound, if Nora so much as breathed wrong tonight, Sarah would be out, because tonight was important. A buyout of the diamond section, VIPs from Dubai and Riyadh, high net worth clients who would not tolerate disruption. And if her mother started one of her episodes in the middle of the amuse bouche, he would fire her before the plate hit the floor. "She won't," Sarah promised, glancing back at the kitchen alcove where Nora sat staring blankly at the stainless steel fridge, looking heartbreakingly small, only 50 but carrying herself like 70, her once raven black hair streaked with premature gray beneath a cheap woolen beanie, a shapeless gray cardigan from a charity shop hanging off her narrow shoulders, and she didn't speak much anymore. Not since they left the States, not since the bad years. So most people assumed she was mute or mentally challenged when in truth she was simply broken. "Sarah," Charles snapped, fingers clicking in her face, "table for needs clearing, and fix your hair. You look like you've been dragged through a hedge." And she swallowed her pride, her daily diet, and stepped onto the floor of the Gilded Lily, a place where a salad costs more than her weekly grocery budget, where velvet bongets, low crystal chandeliers, and hushed whispers belonged to people who had never feared an electricity bill, and she moved among them in cheap black flats, feet aching, smiling until her cheeks throbbed as she poured vintage Bordeaux for men who never looked at her, and scraped leftovers from plates for women who looked at her with something close to pity. Around 8 p.m., the air shifted, tightening like a rubber band about to snap, and through the rain-streaked windows a black Rolls-Royce Phantom slid to the curb, followed by a Mercedes G-Wagon, then another, and Charles whispered, panic seeping through his cologne, "They're here. Everyone lines now." So the staff formed a rigid row by the host's stand as the doors swung open and cold London air rushed in carrying the heavy scent of oud, wood and tobacco. A phalanx of bodyguards sweeping inside first with scanning eyes before the man himself entered, tall and broad-shouldered in a bespoke suit that cost more than Sarah's education, beard trimmed with laser precision, eyes dark, intelligent, and utterly cruel. This was Karim Al-Majid, real estate mogul and oil tycoon whose face graced the cover of Forbes Middle East every other month. A man known for ruthless hostile takeovers and absolute disdain for anyone he considered beneath him. And he did not look at the staff lineup as he passed them like furniture, simply commanding the diamond section, in perfect Oxford-educated English clipped with arrogance sharp enough to make Charles shiver as he bowed low and stammered, "Right this way, Mr. Faral Majid," nearly scraping his nose on the floor. And as the entourage swept past, a strange coldness slid over Sarah's skin when she caught the angle of his jaw, something hauntingly familiar that stirred a half-buried childhood memory of sand, heat, and shouting, but she shook it away because she was Sarah Jenkins from Ohio. She had never been to the Middle East, and that past belonged to someone else. "Sarah," Charles hissed, grabbing her arm hard enough for his nails to dig in. "You're on the wine service for the main table. Don't speak unless spoken to. Pour from the right, and for God's sake, Keep your mother hidden, and she nodded, forcing steadiness into her breath as she turned toward the wine cellar with a sinking feeling she could not explain, as if the rain outside had finally found a way inside. The kitchen door was propped open to let the heat out, and from the diamond section, if someone looked at just the right angle, they could see straight through into the back prep area, straight to the folding chair where her mother was rocking back and forth, small and exposed beneath the fluorescent lights. The dinner rush was brutal, and Mr. Almagid's tabbouleh, party of 6 men and 2 women who looked like models, proved the most demanding of all, sending back the soup, then the steak, then insisting on a specific vintage of Dom Perignon that forced a junior waiter to run down the street to assist a restaurant to borrow a bottle, while Sarah moved around them like she didn't exist, pouring wine, refilling water, silent and efficient. This city is filthy, Almagid was saying, swirling his cognac, speaking in English to his guests, his tone lazy and superior. Everywhere you look, mediocrity, the service, the architecture, it lacks dignity. It is not like home, Karim. One of the men laughed lightly. And home? Almagid Clear's throat scoffed, lifting his chin. Home is where we build it. We are the architects of the new world. These people, he gestured vaguely with his cigar, the ash pointing toward Sarah, though he didn't bother to look at her. They are the dust we walk on. Clear's throat, and Sarah felt her jaw tighten so hard it almost hurt. But she told herself to just pour the wine because she needed the tips. She needed the job. She needed the rent. She stepped closer to refill his glass, and as she did, her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the small, jagged scar on her wrist, a pale line against her skin that he did not notice because he was staring past her toward the kitchen, where the swing door had gotten stuck halfway open again, Clear's throat, and that, under the harsh white light of the pass, stood Nora, who had risen from her folding chair and was holding her knitting needles in confused hands, the noise of the restaurant clearly disorienting her as she took one uncertain step forward out of the safety of the alcove and into view, looking like a spectre in grey rags, gaunt and wide-eyed, staring at the glittering dining room. Almagid stopped mid-sentence and squinted, his voice dropping an octave as he said, "What is that?" And the whole table turned to follow his gaze while Charles, standing at the pose station, froze in place. Charles Almagid barked sharply, and Charles sprinted over, breathless. "Yes, sir. Is everything all right?" But Almagid only lifted a manicured finger and pointed directly at Nora. "Why is there a beggar in the kitchen? I am paying £5,000 for this meal, and I have to look at a homeless woman while I eat." And Sarah's heart stopped so abruptly it felt like she'd been struck, her body frozen with the wine bottle still in her hand as Charles turned pale and stammered, I apologize, sir. That is the mother of one of our staff. A temporary arrangement. I will have her moved immediately." "Moved," Almagid repeated, then laughed a cold, dry laugh that scraped against the room. "She looks like she carries disease. Look at her. She's shaking. Is she a drug addict or just simple?" And his guests responded with nervous, sycophantic chuckles, eager to please the alpha. "I will handle it," Sir Charles said quickly, then spun towards Sarah, fury blazing in his eyes. "Sarah, get her out now. Put her in the alley if you have to." "The alley?" Sarah whispered, disbelief cracking her voice. "It's 40 and raining." "Charles, I don't care," he hissed, and something inside her shifted as she set the wine bottle down carefully on the sidebar, her hands trembling now not from fear but from a rage that began deep in her stomach and climbed steadily toward her throat. She walked toward the kitchen and met Nora's eyes, saw the terror there, because even if her mother didn't process every word, she understood tone. She understood the way predators sounded when they circled. "Come on, Mum," Sarah Clear's throat said softly as she reached her. "Let's go to the break room downstairs," and she began guiding her back. But before they could disappear, Almagid's voice cut across the restaurant again. Only this time he had switched languages, speaking Arabic under the assumption that in this posh London dining room, among French waiters and British management, his words would be safe and private. "Shoo, Al-Karafa," he said to the man on his right, his tone dripping contempt. "Look at the filth. It reminds me of the Bedouin rats back in the unwashed territories, breeding like stray dogs, ending up in kitchens like this." And Sarah stopped walking, Nora stopping with her, her hand gripping Sarah's arm so tightly her knuckles turned white. But Almagid continued, louder now, "Performing for the table, that woman, she has the eyes of a beaten camel. No soul, just empty space. It is why we cleared the wadi. You cannot civilize people who are born to crawl in the dirt. You see that waitress, the daughter, she will end up just like the mother, breeding more rats to serve us our food." And the table erupted into laughter while Sarah stood there with her back to them. the air in the room feeling thin and stolen, because she knew that language. She didn't just know it, she felt it in her marrow. It wasn't the modern standard Arabic heard on Al Jazeera. It wasn't the Egyptian dialect of films. It was key, and more specifically it was the way he twisted it to mock the Bedouin, the people of the desert, her father's people. She looked down at her mother and saw tears streaming silently down Nora's face, proof that she understood every syllable of the venom that had just been spat at them. And something inside Sarah broke, or maybe it finally woke up, and she turned around as Charles caught sight of her expression and began frantically waving his hands, mouthing "No, go." But she did not go. She walked back into the dining room. She walked past Charles without even glancing at him and went straight to table 1, and the laughter that had filled the air only moments ago thinned and died as she approached. Al-Majid looked up, irritation flickering across his face, clearly assuming she had come to refill the water. "I didn't ask for you," he sneered in English. "Go away, girl." But Sarah stood tall. She drew in a slow breath, catching the sharp scent of his expensive cologne layered over the sour undertone of arrogance. And when she opened her mouth, she did not speak English at all. The words that came out were rhythmic, ancient, and the silence that followed was absolute, thick and crushing, like a physical weight dropped onto the table. Al-Majid's glass stopped halfway to his lips, and the smile slid off his face like oil as he blinked at her, trying to process what he was hearing. It wasn't just that she spoke Arabic, it was how she spoke it. No city dialect, but the deep, heavy gaff sound of the deep desert, the grammar of the elders themselves. "What did you say?" he whispered in English, his face straining of color. Sarah did not switch back. She locked her eyes onto his and felt, as surely as breath in her lungs, the spirit of 1,000 ancestors standing behind her shoulders. "Aunt to Samina Kilaban," she continued, her voice rising, steady and sharp. "You call us dogs. You call my mother filth. But a dog is loyal to its pack. A dog does not bite the hand that fed it. You, Karim al-Majid, you are a jackal. You eat the kill of lions and pretend you are the king." The guests, Saudi, Emirati, Kuwaiti, sat, frozen, mouths hanging open, understanding every word. A waitress, white passing American, speaking the dialect of the Boni Soccer, or older still. Al-Majid rose slowly from his chair, the napkin slipping from his lap. "Who are you?" he demanded in Arabic. "Who taught you this tongue?" "You are a mongrel, a mongrel." Sarah laughed, and the sound echoed with the ghost of her mother's laughter from before the sadness swallowed it. "You recognize the accent, don't you, Karim? It itches at your memory." She stepped closer, and though the bodyguards moved, Al-Majid lifted a hand to hold them back, his eyes searching her face. "You speak of the wadi," Sarah said, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You speak of clearing the rats out, but you forget who owned the wells in that wadi before your grandfather learned how to sign a contract with the British." His eyes widened, flicking from her to the kitchen doorway where Nora now stood, no longer slouched but upright. "Impossible," he breathed. "They died. The fire in 1998. The camp was destroyed." "One woman ran," Sarah said, tears burning her eyes, though she would not let them fall. "She ran with a baby in her arms. She ran across the border, took a boat, took a plane, scrubbed floors, and hid in the shadows so the jackals wouldn't find her." She pointed at him. "You sit in my father's chair, Karim. You drink wine bought with the money from my grandfather's land. Your father." His voice trembled. "Who is your father?" And Sarah looked straight into him and delivered the blow she had rehearsed in the mirror since she was 12. Using the full tribal naming convention, Anasar bint Rashid bin Hamad el-Fi, daughter of the Sheikh of the Red Sands and the woman you just called a stray dog. "Is the Shaker no?" The crash that followed was deafening. One of the women had dropped her fork onto the fine china. "Alpha," the woman whispered, terrified. "The bloodline of the keepers." Al-Majid staggered back, gripping the table's edge as if the ground itself had tilted. The Alpha tribe were not merely a family but the old royalty of the region, guardians of treaties. The ones modern tycoons had betrayed and supposedly wiped out to seize the oil fields in the disputed zone. And if Sarah was who she claimed to be, she was no mere waitress in the desert's hierarchy. She outranked every person at that table. "Lies," Al-Majid snarled, though the word rang hollow. "Rashid had no survivors. He died with his foreign. Don't you dare." Sarah lunged forward, seizing the tablecloth. "Don't you dare speak of her security." Al-Majid screamed, panic cracking his voice. "Remove this liar. She is insane." The bodyguards surged forward. Charles, finally jolted from his shock by the distress of his VIP guest, barked, "Sarah, you're fired. Get out, security. Grab her." Two massive men in black suits clamped onto her arms, and though she struggled, they were too strong. dragging her backward as she shouted in English now, "You can't hide the truth, Karim. You stole it all. You know who she is." They hauled her toward the kitchen doors, ready to throw her into the rain, when a voice sliced through the chaos, high, clear, commanding. "Release her." It was not Charles. It was not Omajid. It was the mute woman. Nora stepped out from the kitchen without the knitting needles, moving with a slow, terrifying grace until she stood beneath the crystal chandelier in the center of the room. She looked first at the bodyguards, then at Al-Majid, and with deliberate calm she pulled the cheap wool beanie from her head, letting her hair fall down mostly gray, yes, but unmistakably the thick, wavy hair of the desert beauty she once was. She looked at the Tycoon and spoke a single word in Arabic, a name known only to the inner circle. "Ya Karimo, little Karim." Al-Majid collapsed back into his chair, his face draining to gray. "No," he whispered. "Aunt, no." The restaurant fell into a suffocating silence, broken only by the low hum of the wine fridges and the torrential rain pounding against the glass outside. Karim Al-Majid, the billionaire who could buy countries, suddenly looked like a child who had seen a ghost, sinking deeper into the velvet blanket as the tan bled from his skin into a sickly ash. "Aunt, no," he whispered again, voice shaking. We buried you. We found the body." The dental records matched Nora. The woman who for the last 10 years had flinched at loud noises and hidden in pantry closets took a step forward, and the change in her was visible, physical. Her spine straightened, her chin lifted, her hands no longer curled in defense but poised with the regal composure of someone who had once hosted heads of state in the Margus of the Red Sands. She ignored his stammering and walked directly to the table, her cheap gray cardigan incongruous against the white tablecloths and crystal glasses. Reaching out, she picked up Karim's glass of Shadowpet, studied the dark red wine for a long moment, and then poured it slowly, deliberately, onto the pristine white cloth, where it bloomed outward like a spreading bloodstain. "Damalawan local," she said softly. "The blood of the traitor cannot be washed away." "Nor," Karim choked. "Please." It was a misunderstanding. "The fire, it was an accident. The generator exploded." "The generator?" Nora let out a dry, hollow laugh. "Is that the story you sold to the newspapers, Karim? Is that the lie you built your empire on?" She turned to the table, to the powerful men and women from the Gulf who were watching her now with horror and something like reverence. They knew the history. They knew the tragedy of the Alpha family. "Look at him," Nora commanded in English, her accent thick but unyielding. "Look at the man you do business with. He tells you he is a self-made man. He tells you he found oil in the desolate quarter through geological genius." Her finger trembled as she pointed at Karim. "He was an orphan," she declared. "My husband Sheikh Rashid found him begging in the souk in Jeddah. He was 12, scabby, starving, forgotten. Rashid took him in. He gave him a room in our house. He gave him education. He treated him like a brother to his own son." Sarah stood frozen, stunned. She had known fragments to escape, the fear, but not this depth of betrayal. Karim was not merely a rival. He was family. He was the Judas. "And how did you repay him, Karim?" Nora asked, her voice dropping into a whisper edged with terror. "The night of the Eid feast, 1998. You were 22. You wanted the deed to the land. You knew the survey results before anyone else. You knew what was under the sand." Karim shot to his feet, knocking his chair backward. "Stop. She is mad. She has dementia." He glanced wildly at his bodyguards. "Get them out. Kill them if you have to." "Sit down," roared one of the guests, the older man at the end of the table who had been silent until now. Sheikh Hamdan rose, his face dark with fury, a man whose influence rivaled even Karim's. "You will let her speak, Al-Majid." Sheikh Hamdan growled. "If this is Sheikh nor Aliz, then you are standing on stolen ground." Karim froze. He could not command his guards against Sheikh Hamdan without igniting a diplomatic war. Nora went on, her gaze never leaving Karim's. "You barred the doors from the outside. Karim, I saw you through the nursery window. I saw you pouring the gasoline. I saw you strike the match. You smiled. You smiled as the house of the man who saved you turned into an oven. Lies." Karim screamed, sweat slicking his face. "I tried to save you. I was burned trying to get in. You were burned because the canister exploded too early." Nora cried back, her composure fracturing into raw grief. "I took Sarah. She was a baby. I crawled through the servants' tunnel, the tunnel you forgot existed, because you were too busy counting your future billions. We ran, we vanished. I let the world believe we were dead because I knew if you found us, you would finish the job. I scrubbed toilets in Paris. I washed dishes in New York. I served tables in London. I aged 20 years in 5, all to keep her safe from you." She gestured toward Sarah, who stood there feeling the waitress apron like a costume she was finally ready to shed. The shame of poverty, of being the help, dissolved in that moment. She was not Sarah the waitress. She was the proof he failed to burn. But today, Nora said, her voice steady once more, today you called my daughter a dog. You mocked her in the tongue of her ancestors. And that, Kareem, her eyes hardened, that was your mistake. You woke the sleepers. Kareem looked around the room. The diners in the other sections had stopped eating entirely. Forks hovered mid-air, phones were raised, and people were recording while the staff stood frozen in place. And Charles, the manager, was near the kitchen door hyperventilating as Kareem slowly understood that the walls were closing in around him. So he did the only thing a man like him knew how to do. He tried to buy his way out. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a checkbook, and with hands shaking so violently he could barely steady the pen, forced a smile that looked like a rictus of pain. Okay, he said. Okay, Aunt Noah, you survived. A miracle, alhamdulillah. Look, we are family. We can fix this. He scribbled furiously, tore the check free, and slapped it down on the table. 10 million pounds, he said. Cash, tomorrow. Take the girl. Go to Switzerland. Buy a villa. Live like queens. Just go. Forget this night. Tell everyone it was a joke. A performance. Sarah stared at the check. It was more money than she could earn in 1,000 lifetimes of serving tables at the Gilded Lily. Enough to fix everything, and she stepped forward, picked it up, and for a moment Karim's shoulders sagged with relief. Smart girl, he murmured. You have your father's pragmatism. Sarah looked at the paper, then at him. My father, she said, didn't sell his honor for paper. She tore the check cleanly in half, then into quarters, and let the confetti drift down into his half-eaten Wagyu beef. We don't want your money, Kareem. We want the wells. We want the name, and we want to see you in a cell. His eyes went black, the thin veneer of civilization evaporating as he turned to his head of security. A massive Serbian man named Goran. Clear the room, Kareem said flatly. Now, confiscate all phones. No one leaves with footage. Goran nodded, lifted a radio from his belt. Lock the doors. Code black. In a heartbeat, the mood shifted from dramatic to dangerous. The heavy oak doors of the Gilded Lily slammed shut with a boom that rattled the windows. Electronic locks sealing with a mechanical hiss as panic broke loose. You can't do this. A banker at table 6 shouted, rising. I'm calling the police. Sit down, Goran barked, pulling a taser from his jacket while his other hand hovered near his holster, and the remaining bodyguards spread out, blocking exits and the kitchen pass. Kareem Almajid calmly adjusted his cufflinks, composure returning now that brute force was in play. Nobody is going to get hurt, he announced smoothly. We just need to ensure that proprietary business secrets discussed tonight remain private. Everyone will surrender their devices. My team will delete the files. Then everyone will receive a complimentary bottle of vintage crystal and a voucher for £5,000. His gaze shifted to Sarah and Nora. Except you two. You are coming with me. Charles finally seemed to find his spine, or perhaps he simply grasped the catastrophic liability unfolding. Mr. Almajid, he squeaked, stepping forward. You cannot kidnap my staff. This is London, not the desert. Shut up, you insect. Kareem snapped without even looking at him. Goran, grab the women. The Serbian lunged for Sarah. She jerked back, knocking over a tray of wine glasses that shattered across the floor, red wine splashing like arterial spray. Mom, run, she screamed. But there was nowhere to run. The front doors were locked. The kitchen exit blocked by another guard. They were trapped in the dining room. Goran seized her arm, his grip like a steel vice. She screamed and kicked, her heel slamming into his shin, but he didn't flinch, and another guard twisted Nora's arm behind her back until she cried out in pain. Let her go, Sarah shrieked. Stop. The command thundered from Sheikh Hamdan, who stood with his phone pressed to his ear. I am on the line with the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, he said calmly, and I have just live-streamed the last 3 minutes to my private server. It is already being sent to the embassy. Kareem froze, staring at Hamdan with naked hatred. You interfere in family business, Hamdan. I interfere in crimes, Hamdan replied. Let them go, or I will ensure that every contract your company holds in the Emirates is cancelled by morning. It became a standoff, billionaire versus sheikh, old money versus new. While Kareem weighed his options, glancing at the phones, still recording in trembling hands, at Hamdan, at Sarah, realizing he had lost the room. If he took them by force now, with Hamdan witnessing it, he would be finished, and he would need to make them disappear later, quietly, when there were no cameras. Release them, he spat at last. Goran shoved Sarah away so hard she stumbled into a table, bruising her hip, and the other guard let Nora go. Sarah rushed to her mother, wrapping her arms around her shaking frame. "Get out," Karim hissed. "Get out of my sight. But know this, Sarah, or whatever you call yourself, you have started a war you cannot win. You have no money. You have no lawyers. You have nothing but a fairy tale. I will bury you in court, and when the world loses interest, I will find you. Let's go, Mom," Sarah whispered. "Wait." Nora slipped a hand into her pocket and pulled out something small, not a weapon, but an old rusted iron key, and tossed it onto the table in front of Karim. The old rusted iron key end clattered sharply against the china. "That is the key to the nursery," Nora said, her voice steady. "The one you locked from the outside. Keep it. Let it remind you that you missed one door." Then they turned and began walking toward the entrance while the bodyguard stood frozen. "Open the door," Sheikh Hamdan commanded, and Goran glanced at Karim, who gave a curt nod. The electronic locks buzzed and the heavy doors swung wide, and the cold London rain struck them like a slap, yet it felt like baptism. They stumbled onto the slick pavement of Kensington High Street, fresh air flooding Sarah's lungs, tasting of diesel and freedom. "Sarah," Charles came running after them with an umbrella, face pale with panic. "Sarah, wait. You can't come back. You know that, right? I can't have this drama." She looked at the man who had terrorized her for 4 years over spilled water. "I quit, Charles," she said calmly. "And by the way, you're out of beef." She tightened her grip on her mother's hand. "Come on, we need to move." "He won't let us go that easily." "Where?" Nora asked, the adrenaline already draining from her body, leaving her frail again. "We can't go to the flat. He knows the address on your employment file." She was right. Karim Almajid had resources that could find a needle in a haystack, and they were 2 glowing beacons with no car, £40 in cash, and a declared war against a man worth $20 billion. They walked quickly, blending into the stream of evening commuters, Sarah glancing over her shoulder every few steps, half expecting a black SUV to jump the curb and grab them. Her phone began to buzz in her pocket, one notification, then another, then a constant vibration. With rain-slick hands, she pulled it out and opened YouTube. Someone inside the restaurant had already uploaded a video titled "Waitress Destroys Billionaire Secret Princess." It had been live for 12 minutes and already had 50,000 views. She tapped it open, shaky footage shot from beneath a table napkin, but the audio was perfectly clear. "You call us dogs, but a dog is loyal." "Mom," she whispered, turning the screen toward her, "the world is watching." "Good," Nora replied, eyes hard. "Let them watch. Light keeps the cockroaches away." Suddenly a black cab rolled up beside them and the window slid down. Sarah tensed, ready to fight, but instead a young woman, maybe 25, wearing a hijab and expensive sunglasses, leaned toward them from behind the wheel of what looked like a customized London taxi. "Get in," she said urgently. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, stepping back. "I'm Leela Sheikh. Hamdan sent me. Karim has a cleaner team 2 blocks away. If you don't get in this car in the next 10 seconds, you will never make it to the police station." Sarah looked at Nora. Her mother gave a small nod, and they jumped in. "Get down," Leila ordered. And as they ducked below the window line, Sarah saw a grey Mercedes van screech around the corner they had just passed. For men spilling out and scanning the crowd. Leila slammed the accelerator and the cab shot into traffic. "Where are you taking us?" Sarah asked, heart pounding. In the rearview mirror, Leila's eyes were sharp. "The Sheikh has a safe house in Knightsbridge, but we aren't going there yet. He said you need to make a stop first." "A stop? Where?" "A law firm and a news station. Tonight you aren't just refugees, you are breaking news. If you want to survive Karim Almajid, you have to become too famous to kill." Sarah stared at the blur of city lights, streaking red and gold through the rain. Her life as Sarah the Invisible Waitress was over. The war for the Red Sands now spilling into London's streets. Then her mother squeezed her hand. "Sarah," she whispered, "there is something I didn't tell you in the restaurant. Something Karim doesn't know." "What?" "The deed to the land, the papers he killed for." "He never found them." Sarah's breath caught. "He thinks they burned in the house. He thinks that." Nora smiled a dangerous, almost mischievous smile. "But they didn't, because I didn't leave them in the house." "Where are they, Mum?" Nora tapped her temple. "I memorized the coordinates of the lockbox, but the key, the physical key to the bank vault in Zurich." She reached into her dress and pulled out the locket she had worn every day of Sarah's life, clicked it open, and inside, instead of a photograph, lay a tiny, intricate laser-cut key folded into the gold casing. "We have the weapon, Sarah," she said quietly. "Now we just have to live long enough to use it." The black taxi wove through the labyrinth of London streets. rain smearing neon into bleeding streaks, Nora in the back clutching the locket that held the key to an empire. We cannot go to the police, Layla said suddenly, eyes flicking to the mirror. Sheikh Hamdan just messaged. Karim has filed a report. He claims you two attempted to assassinate him. He says you are radicalized extremists, armed and dangerous. What? Sarah gasped. That's insane. We were holding knitting needles and a wine bottle. He controls the narrative, Leela replied grimly. He owns 2 major newspapers and has shares in the networks. By tomorrow morning, you won't be the victims. You'll be the mad waitress and the terrorist mother. The police have a shoot-to-kill order if you resist. The words landed like ice in Sarah's stomach, twisting it hard. The viral video was their only shield, but the internet moved fast and lies moved faster. She checked her phone again and saw the comment section already flooding with bots, the narrative shifting in real time. He's burying the truth, Nora said, her voice iron-hot. He is drowning us in noise. Where are we going? Sarah demanded. He said a law firm. Change of plans, Layla replied, swerving so sharply the cab tilted onto 2 wheels before slamming back down. The firm is surrounded. I can see the black SUVs on the GPS tracker. We have one chance. We go to the source. The one place he can't cut the feed. Where? BBC Broadcasting House, Leela said. My cousin produces the nightly news. They go live in 40 minutes. If we get you in that chair, unedited, he can't spin it. That's central, Sarah breathed. It's a fortress. Then we drive fast. As they crossed the bridge, the nightmare truly began, one siren behind them. Then another, blue lights flaring in the rear window. Police, Nora cried. Hold on. Leela slammed the accelerator and the heavy cab roared forward, engine screaming. This wasn't cinematic, it was metal and fear and screeching tires as they blew through a red light. Barely missing a double-decker bus, the cruiser glued to their tail. They're going to ram us, Leela shouted, and at that exact moment Sarah's phone rang a known number. She answered. Sarah, the voice was smooth, cultured, terrifying. Karim, how did you get this number? She shouted. I own the telecom provider, my dear, he purred. Look out the window. Give up. I can make this painless. Hand over the key. Yes, I know about the key. Your mother is sentimental. I will let you live. You can go to America. Be a waitress. Be nobody. It's better than being a corpse. You burned my house. Sarah shot back, adrenaline making her shake. You stole my name. I will never be nobody again. Then die, Karim said. And the line went dead. The police car surged forward and clipped their bumper. The world snapped sideways as the cab spun across the rain-slick road and slammed into a parked delivery truck. Glass exploded. The airbag punched Sarah in the face, tasting of chemicals and dust. Mom, she screamed, fighting through the collapsing fabric. I'm here, Nora groaned, blood streaking from a cut on her forehead. Go, Leela yelled from the crushed driver's seat, pinned by twisted metal. Run, the station is 2 blocks north. Run, we can't leave you. They want you, Leela screamed. Go, make it count. Sarah kicked the passenger door open, grabbed her mother's hand, and they stumbled into the rain as armed police spilled from their vehicle. Armed police, get on the ground. They didn't. They ran straight into the chaotic pulse of Oxford Circus, weaving through tourists and shoppers, ducking into an alley. Sarah, I can't, Nora gasped, clutching her chest. My heart, yes you can. Sarah grabbed her face, rain mixing with blood. You walked across a desert with me in your arms. You can walk 2 blocks to a TV station. You are Shaker. Move. Something hardened inside Nora. She straightened, drawing on the iron that had kept them alive for 20 years. They burst back into the street, and the BBC building rose ahead in glass and light, but 3 men in dark suits stood between them and the revolving doors. Karim's private security, hands already sliding into their jackets. Hey, Sarah screamed at a group of teenagers filming a TikTok dance nearby. Help, we are being chased. Call the police. Heads turned, phones lifted. The hitman hesitated. 50 witnesses, 50 cameras. Now. Sarah pulled Nora and they sprinted for the doors, only to be blocked by BBC lobby security. Stop, a guard barked at the sight of 2 bloody disheveled women. I am Sarah Alfs, she shouted, thrusting her phone forward with a viral video playing. I am the woman from the restaurant. I have proof of a murder. Let us in or be complicit. The guard faltered. He recognized her. London had seen the clip by now. Let them in. A woman's voice called from the balcony above Leela's cousin with a headset. They crashed through the turnstiles just as Karim's men reached the glass. Stopping short, fury trapped behind safety panes. They were inside, Outside, the London rain felt transforming the dreary drizzle that had soaked her waitress uniform for 4 years, but a violent cleansing storm. Her lungs burned as she dragged her mother across the slick pavement near Oxford Circus. Behind them, the rammed SUV steamed against a lamppost, radiator hissing. She didn't need to look back to know Kareem's men were coming. She felt their pursuit like cold breath at her neck. Sarah, I can't, Nora gasped, her hand slipping free as she stumbled, knees striking the wet concrete. The adrenaline that had carried her through her transformation in the restaurant was draining away now, leaving behind a frail, exhausted woman who looked as if the wind itself might knock her down. You can, Sarah hissed, holding her mother upright with trembling hands. Look, it's right there. The BBC broadcasting house rose ahead of them like a modern fortress, a curved wall of glass and light glowing against the night. It was less than 100 yards away, yet it felt like miles. Stop, a voice roared from behind. Sarah turned her head and saw 3 men in dark coats shoving through the crowd of tourists. Not with the wild panic of civilians, but with the cold, predatory focus of wolves. One of them slipped a hand inside his jacket. Sarah screamed, spotting a group of university students filming a vlog near the tube station entrance. They have guns. Call the police. The scream worked. The students turned with their phones raised, and the hitman hesitated, because in the age of the internet, a gunshot in a crowd is a death sentence for secrecy. They slowed, trying to melt into the crowd, but the distance between them was shrinking. Move, Mum. They crashed into the revolving doors of the BBC lobby with the force of a car wreck, and Sarah practically threw her mother inside. 2 security guards stepped forward, palms raised. Madame, you cannot. I am Sarah Ella, she shouted, her voice cracking as she thrust up her phone. Its screen cracked, but still displaying the frozen image of the viral video. I am the woman from the Gilded Lily. The world is asking who I am. I'm here to tell them. The guards hesitated. They had seen the news. Everyone in London had seen the news. Let them through. A woman's voice sliced across the lobby. Ela's cousin, a producer named Jessica, sprinted over the polished floor, waving her lanyard. They're guests of the 10 o'clock news. Clear them now. They were rushed past the turnstiles just as Kareem's men slammed their hands against the exterior glass, and Sarah locked eyes with the lead enforcer, who stared back with dead, shark-like eyes before touching his earpiece and turning away. Already knowing he had lost, they were in the light now. The makeup room was eerily quiet, a brutal contrast to the chaos outside, and a young woman tried to dab concealer over the cut on Nora's forehead. Leave it, Nora said softly, pushing the brush aside as she studied herself in the mirror. Not a broken refugee, but a matriarch. Let them see the blood. It is the ink of our story. 5 minutes later, they were seated beneath the blinding glare of studio lights, across from Marcus Thorne, the network's most formidable anchor, who regarded them not with pity but with the sharp, hungry intensity of a journalist aware he was sitting on a Pulitzer Prize. We are live in 30 seconds, the floor manager counted down, and Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs. This was it. No more hiding in pantries, no more silence. Sarah, Marcus said during the countdown, leaning closer, Almajid's lawyers have just sent a cease and desist order. They claim you're mentally unstable. If you lie on air, you will go to prison. She met his gaze. If I lie, I expect to go to prison. If I tell the truth, I expect Kareem to go to hell, and we're live. The red light on camera, one blinked on. Good evening, Marcus began gravely. Tonight, a scene at a Kensington restaurant has sparked a global firestorm. Accusations of murder, stolen identity, and royal betrayal involving one of the world's wealthiest men. Joining me are the women at the center of the storm, Sarah Jenkins and her mother, N. He turned back to her. Sarah, let's be blunt. You are a waitress. You claim to be the daughter of Sheikh Rashid Ailes, a man who died 20 years ago. Why should anyone believe you? She inhaled slowly and looked straight into the lens, imagining Kareem watching from his penthouse suite. Because a waitress observes everything, she said steadily. We are invisible. We see who cheats, who lies, and who is cruel when they think no one matters. Kareem Al-Majid forgot that the help have eyes. He forgot that the filth he stepped on were the people who gave him his first pair of shoes. He claims your mother died in the fire, Marcus pressed. He has death certificates. He has forgeries, Nora interrupted, her raspy voice filling the studio with commanding calm. He burned a house. He did not burn the truth. Do you have proof? Marcus asked. Real proof, not just memories. I have the witness, Nora replied, reaching into the pocket of her torn cardigan and drawing out the golden locket, placing it on the glass table where it looked small and insignificant beneath the expensive lights. This locket was a gift from my husband. Inside, there is no picture. She clicked the latch, and the gold casing fell away to reveal a mechanism, a complex laser-cut iron key folded into the jewelry. The camera zoomed in. The studio fell utterly silent. This is a master key, Nora explained. Zurich Canal Bank, Vault 774. It requires 2 keys to open. The bank manager has one. The owner has the other. Karim has the land. Marcus, he has the oil. But he does not have the deed, because the deed is in that box, and this is the only key in existence. Sarah leaned forward, her voice steady but blazing with quiet defiance. We challenge Karim Al-Majid to meet us in Zurich tomorrow morning. If the key doesn't fit, we will surrender to the police. But if it does, then he answers for the fire. The aftermath was not instantaneous, but it was unstoppable. By morning the #HashTheKey was trending in every country on Earth, and the Swiss bank released a formal statement, confirming the existence of the box and the unique nature of its locking mechanism. Karim did not go to Zurich, he tried to flee to Riyadh instead. But he was arrested on the tarmac at Heathrow Airport, and the live stream of him being handcuffed, his face hidden beneath a jacket as he was shoved into the back of a police van, drew more views than the royal wedding. His empire did not simply crumble, it evaporated. Investors withdrew, assets were frozen, and the board of directors dismissed him before he even reached the police station. The trial lasted 6 months, a spectacle of the century, and Sarah would always remember the day of the verdict. She entered the courtroom not in a waitress uniform but in a tailored navy suit, and took her seat in the front row. When Karim was brought in, he looked like a ghost, aged 20 years, his eyes searching her face for the fear he once commanded, but he found none. She felt nothing for him except a distant pity, seeing only a small man who had burned down a home because he was too weak to build his own. The judge's gavel fell guilty, fraud, embezzlement, corporate manslaughter, and, as they led him away, Nora rose silently and held up the locket one final time. Karim saw it, slumped forward with his head dropping to his chest, and the doors closed on him forever. 1 year later, the desert wind felt nothing like the London rain. It carried the scent of sage and ancient dust as Sarah stood on the terrace of their new compound in the Wadi Rum. Not a palace of gold and marble, they had endured enough golden cages, but a structure of stone and glass, carved into the red cliffs. Sarah, she turned to see Isla hurrying up the stone steps with a tablet in her hand. The scholarship fund just cleared. We can accept another 100 students next semester. Good, Sarah said with a smile. Make sure half the spots go to the stateless camps. We leave no one behind. She crossed the open courtyard where, beneath the shade of the massive olive tree they had planted, her mother sat, not the woman in the grey beanie anymore, but dressed in a traditional th of deep royal blue, silver hair gleaming in the sun, surrounded by a circle of young girls as she taught them the intricate knitting patterns of their tribe, the patterns that told stories, the patterns Karim had once dismissed as filth. Nora looked up, her eyes creasing into a smile that made her seem young again, and Sarah went to sit beside her, not Sarah the waitress, not even Sarah the refugee, but Sarah Alf's, daughter of the Red Sands, who had set down the tray and taken up the pen, and for the first time in her life she was no longer serving someone else's story but writing her own. And that is how a worthless stray brought down an empire. Sarah and No proved that land can be stolen and money can be stolen, but the truth never can. Karim Al-Majid died in a prison cell 2 years later, bankrupt and alone, while Sarah and No used the recovered fortune to build schools across the desert so that no child would ever be silenced again. It is a reminder to all of us, be careful who you step on. The person serving your coffee might just be the one holding the keys to your kingdom. If this story gave you chills, please hit that like button. It truly helps the channel, and if you want more incredible stories of karma and justice, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.